Cool deal. I
All
think
right, we're live on Facebook. What's up, Cole?
I think we are live, man. I'm not very, there's always that loading screen. So you're just like, are we live yet or not? And then you're just kind of like looking into abyss in the camera. So what's up? For you guys who don't know Mr. Brad Hart, he is the world's most interesting man, kind of. No, I'm just kidding. But he has many talents in the business and online space, and a great story. He's been a client of mine. He's also helped give me a lot of great advice throughout my journey coming up as a sales trainer and business owner and all of this different type of stuff. So happy to have him on here and talk about really anything. What do you say? Business, money, marketing.
Yeah, masterminds, money, marketing. Those are my 3 M's for Make More Marbles.
For sure. I love it, dude. Tell everybody a little bit about how you got into the mastermind stuff, because you do have a very great story when it comes to that. So
yeah,
good place to start off.
So it all kind of started when my dad passed away. I was visiting my mom on Mother's Day, and I got a call that my dad had passed away. This is 10 years ago, this May, actually. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, oh, shit. You know, like how Jim Carrey says, you can fail at what you don't love, so you might as well take a chance at what you do.
Right.
Well, that was kind of my moment where I'm like, oh, shit, well, I don't have forever. Like my dad died at 61. You know, maybe I won't live forever. I'm not in great shape, or I wasn't at that time. I was drinking and partying and living the life. Maybe it's time for me to make a change. So I shifted some things around. And one of the things I did was I joined a mastermind. But it kind of happened through the circuitous route. It actually started with like, I wanted to meet all my heroes and see how they lived and see what they were all about. One of my big heroes at the time was Tim Ferriss. And Tim, if you guys remember, I had met him like at a gym in 2009. He had just launched his second book, The 4-Hour Body. And he was doing this giveaway thing where if you bought a certain number of books, you could go on a trip with him. So I bought like the primo package, and I went for a 10-day trip, all expenses paid, to Africa with Tim Ferriss. I ended up donating all the books. I actually donated 900 of them, and I kept 100 of them. I come home one day and my fucking UPS guy's like cursing my name, because there's like, you remember his books are like door stoppers. They're gigantic.
Huge. Yeah, they're like 5 times huge.
So I show up and there's like 15 boxes of books in front of my door, and he's pissed. But yeah, so I go to Africa with Tim, and during the trip, he's like, hey man, what do you want to do with your life? And I told him, and he's like, do you want to go to North Korea? I'm like, North Korea? What the hell are you talking about? He's like, yeah, my friend's doing this trip to North Korea. I think you should go. I'm like, are you going to North Korea? He's like, hell no. I'm like, why do I want to go to North Korea? Who's your friend? He's like, I can't tell you. Like, I think it'd be good for you. And I wouldn't go. I'm like, I don't like, no, I'm not going to North Korea. This is weird. So I come home and I get this email from Neil Strauss saying, hey, I just brought my mastermind group back from North Korea. I didn't know what the hell a mastermind group was, but that sounded like a cool trip based on the way he described it. He's a great writer. He's written 10 New York Times bestsellers.
Right.
And I reach out to Neil's team, and I'm like, hey, tell me about this mastermind group. And I ended up enrolling. So all of a sudden, here I am. I'm like this 24-year-old kid, and I'm around people that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who already had careers and done very well. A lot of them making 7 figures. One guy was making like 9 figures. He had the 3rd largest rolling paper company in the world. And all of a sudden I'm around all this. So it was like, you have to grow, right? Your peer group dictates how fast you grow. So I remember we went to one of these intensives. They had these quarterly intensives. They teach us like all this James Bond shit, like how to pick locks and break into cars and do parkour and all kinds of cool stuff. And during one of the intensives, we learned about this thing called NVC, Nonviolent Communication, by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. And it's a really effective strategy for communicating. But it was hard to explain and teach. So Josh, the rolling paper guy, reaches out to me. By the way, his company called Raw Rolling Papers. If anybody smokes here or goes to a tobacco shop, you'll see them all over the world.
Raw.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've seen those.
He started Raw, a very successful guy, great dude. So Josh calls me. He's like, hey, man, tell me about MVC. I didn't get it at the intensive. So I explained it to him. He's like, hey, man, I got another problem. I'm like, well, what's your problem, Josh? He says, I spend about $250K a month on my black card, and I accumulate airline miles faster than I can spend them. I'm like, that sounds like a high quality problem to have. What do you want me to do about that? He's like, here's 300,000 air miles. Do with them as you please. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't have any context for that. He's like, oh, that's like 10 first class tickets anywhere you want to go. I'm like, abundance problems, right? So all of a sudden I'm in this realm of like, oh shit, this is like the kind of problems that rich people have, the kind of problems that successful people have. I want to have those kind of problems, right? Where I can send my friend around the world to meet everybody. So I took that opportunity to go and travel around, meet everybody, and build my network. I ended up launching a hedge fund out of that, did 106% in a single year. We had $1 million a month. And up until that point in my life, like $1 million is a lot of money to a lot of people, but it's not all the money in the world. But at that time, it felt like all the money in the world. It felt like it was going to be more money that I'd ever make in my lifetime. And up until that point, I thought all my problems were related to a lack of money. So I grew up very poor.
Right.
And I realized at that moment that my problems were just beginning, because I thought that once I made a certain amount of money, everything would be fine. And what it did was just blew a fuse where I'm like, oh shit, I'm never going to be happy, because if money doesn't do it, what is? And at that time, I only had one rule, which is make a lot of money. Now I have three rules, which is help a lot of people, have a lot of fun, and make a lot of money. And they tend to balance each other out.
There you go.
So nowadays I help people build masterminds because they're the best way to increase your income and your impact in the least amount of time, like adding 6 figures to your business in 5 to 10 hours a month of delivery, which I really love. And it's great for coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, experts, leaders, influencers, anybody who has an audience or a message or a niche that's well dialed in and just wants to get more leverage on their time and create more impact. They should absolutely have a mastermind.
Right. I love that, man. Said a few things there. I just want to ask you a few questions about it. That might be kind of off the wall. Question for you though, since you went through the whole thing where you made a bunch of money, realized it didn't make you happy, and then, had to kind of rebuild and redo the values. Do you feel like it's one of those things where you almost, to grow in that way, like almost spiritually, I guess you could say, and to heal, that you kind of have to go through that? You have to make the money to really understand and have the reference experience that it doesn't make you happy? Or do you feel like there's a way around that to where, you don't necessarily have to make millions of dollars before you realize like there's more to life than that? If that's kind of the trajectory that you're on.
Yeah, I think your level of consciousness has a lot to do with it, and the capacity you have to interpret reality. So for me, it was the former, which was, I didn't believe I had the consciousness to realize until after the fact. Like I had to have that experience in order for me to have the consciousness to understand that it wasn't about the money in the beginning.
Right.
And it's really hard to explain that to somebody who's never made a lot of money, because they don't have that frame of reference. So I understand, I can commiserate with that because I've been on both sides of that, but it's just the truth. Like, I don't think I could have got there any other way. It's possible, I suppose, that you could come to that terminology without it, but there's different, like spiral dynamics is something that Tony teaches. When you go through the different levels, when you get to orange, it's almost like you have to go to orange before you can go to green. And then you have to go to yellow before you can recognize that you were ever in green. Like I spent a lot of time in green, and now I'm in yellow, flexing and flowing and figuring shit out. And every once in a while I touch turquoise, but I don't live there, certainly. And it's like really interesting to see when I get upset or angry, I go to drop down like red or orange, or, I get pissed. I take matters in my own hands, and I get more driver. It's just a really fascinating thing. So if you really want to study this stuff, I would check out Spiral Dynamics. It's a really helpful tool to understand this. And the journeys you go through, but you have to go through one level to get to the next is the whole point of that.
I do think that's true. And I think you probably can, it's like, not like you have to make money to eventually realize that you don't need it. So I think you can circumvent that. I think for a lot of people, I know for me, it's like probably the fastest way of healing through that kind of thing is just to like do it and get through it and have to go through the depression, and all that stuff. Right. It's like Donnie Epstein says, you're nobody, and you have to become somebody before you can become nobody again, So just made me think about that. So question, you mentioned masterminds are great for, and we'll talk about your model. I think what you teach is different than what most people teach when they think of mastermind. Okay, so
Sure.
Stay tuned till that. We'll get into the kind of the weeds and the details of how you teach it in the model and all that stuff. But you mentioned, you're around the who you're around is like the biggest influence in your growth.
Yes.
Right? You're the average of the 5 people you're around. Do you feel like that's an absolute truth? Or when you look at people like Mother Teresa and Gandhi, who are around poor people, but still are able to like transcend that and be able to create massive influence, what do you think with them? I always think about that. I think there's like a balance, but then I wonder how somebody was able to do so much good by breaking that rule.
Well, and I wonder how much is marketing and how much is forgotten to time, and how much, because I've heard like Mother Teresa flew around in private jets and hobnobbed with rich people just as much as anybody else, because she had that story, right? That was the story of who she was, and people wanted to help. So through helping her, they were able to impact those lives as well. Because you don't get a whole lot done. You don't become, you don't get to the worldwide stage by being an orphan in Calcutta, or by being a super, completely without, even Gandhi was a politician to some extent.
Yes.
Right. So I don't believe the story as told, because we only get the secondhand version. I believe that these people had many sides to them, and they had different facets, and there were more than, because we all have different sides to ourselves.
Right.
whether we're successful, rich, poor, left, right, center, doesn't matter. Like we all have different faces we show the world. And the story is always the most simplistic version of the story that we get.
Yeah.
So I wonder sometimes about that.
That was a great response. I don't know. I just wanted to see what you would say. I totally agree with you. And I mean, in my experience, man, the more I've up my peer group and my mastermind groups and stuff like that, the better I've gotten. So
100%.
You can't go wrong for doing that. What you said reminds me of the different aspects and sides. It reminds me of somebody like Osho, and I've been watching his documentary and stuff like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, you could paint Osho as a brilliant, philosopher and an incredible voice of our times, or you could paint him as a total fucking lunatic who ran a cult. Right? It's a choice.
Yeah, man, that stuff's interesting. All right, that was random. Tell me about, so your mastermind model is different than, when most people hear masterminds, they think of like, the 30K,
sure,
whatever, and that could be part of it, right? But I feel like that's a smaller part within a bigger container that you create for the mastermind model. Because I talk to people who are clients of yours who have a mastermind of like, hundreds, if not 1,000 people, but it's more lower ticket. It's totally different. It's more about community and in San Diego. So just, give everybody like a high level of what you're doing to create masterminds and what you recommend to clients.
Yeah. So the reason I love masterminds is because they can be a lot of different things. What I try to shy away from is like, it's not a membership group. It's not a group coaching program. It's somebody taking a leadership position with a group of people who have similar values, goals, and ideals, even if they have different industries, different niches, whatever. But they're all kind of committed to getting clarity, accountability, support, building trust, getting leverage in their lives, engaging with other people who are in the like mind of them, and really just building something that's bigger than themselves, right? It's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 11 in this case. And so as the leader, if you're committed to making sure they get their problem solved and bringing in the right experts, it doesn't have to be about you. You don't have to be the one that's coming down the mountain with the freaking tablets. All you have to do is be clear on what they actually need and make sure you find it and bring it to them. So it could be any type of group that you want. You don't have to be the expert. You can make it a one-off. It could be a one-time, half-day to 2-day type of thing. We run 3-day masterminds where we do 2 days of content and speakers and masterminding. And then we do like a give back day, which is really important and near to my heart. I'm on the board of a couple charities. So we'll go and do that. Or you can make it a year-long or a year-plus long, thing, or you could add retreats to it now that COVID's starting to wind down a little more. There's so many different ways you can run a mastermind. I've done 10-day retreats / screw off with my friends / masterminds in Bali and other places that you can like get your trip paid for. I've done China, Hong Kong, Italy. I've done a bunch of different places where it's like super fun and you mastermind and you learn stuff and there's experts. So it's like you get a little bit of everything. So it really just comes down to designing the mastermind formula for the particular people that you're looking to solve their problem for, and then bringing in experts and yourself to solve those problems and ideally over deliver, right? You want to make sure they get what they came for plus a bunch more.
Nice. What's the easiest way to start if maybe, because, there's obviously nuance to it. And even if you do have an audience or a client base or whatever, you want to do it the right way and leverage somebody who's done it. But at the same time, somebody's probably watching this and maybe they're, because you mentioned you don't necessarily have to have experience, right? So
you don't even have to have the audience, right? You could partner with an expert and run the mastermind for them and split the money. I've done that too.
So what do you feel like? Do you feel like that's the best way to get started if you've never done a mastermind and you don't have like momentum yourself before? Or like, what do you feel like?
Yeah, I think the best way is to learn marketing and sales, understanding that at a deep level. It's kind of like the thing you always talk about with people buy what they want, but they get what they need.
Yep.
Right? Everybody needs mindset. Everybody could do better at marketing. Everybody could do better at sales. They won't buy that specifically. They'll buy, hey, I want to build a mastermind. They're sold on that. They come to me and I teach them mindset and sales and marketing. And then they can use other people's audiences. They can use other people's expertise to get the job done. They don't have to spend 10 years building it themselves. And in doing so, by being the second banana to somebody else, you will now build the expertise in the network and the customer base yourself.
That's good. So with the marketing and the sales strategies, is there a specific, like, and obviously, I don't want to get too nitty gritty, but like at a high level, is there a specific, like a way to market it that you typically teach? Or? Yeah,
4 steps basically, right? So we have market research calls. I teach people a market research framework to make it a low pressure, just gathering information. I teach them how to transition that with integrity into a sales call for the people who are the right fit while you're building out the offer, while you're testing the offer. And you test it before you build it by selling it, because you can't sell it. You shouldn't spend time building it. And then
Right.
once you've sold it and you got your kind of cohort, you do a one-off tester mastermind and you
Nice.
get it dialed in, you learn stuff, you get feedback, you make it better. And then you can expand that out to a 3, 6, or 12-month mastermind program where you have people paying the big bucks. So that's basically the way it goes. And then you scale that through paid acquisition means. We teach people how to build funnels. Like I have a book funnel, for example, that does really well. It breaks even on the front end. And then all the clients in the back end are pure profit, as well as any affiliate stuff we get from them. So that's basically the strategy. That's basically the formula. I have one client who knew nothing about marketing or sales when he started. He was actually an ex-cop. And in a year, he had 100 clients. He was actually helping cops in a mastermind, which is really fun. Stay mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared for the job. His name's Chris. And now a year later, he's got 100 clients. Every dollar he spends on Instagram, he gets $9 back. He's got a great niche. His business looks good. He's growing it. It's awesome. He's one of my favorite clients. And it's just been an incredible thing. And we actually became really good friends. And we traveled to New Zealand and did a motorcycle tour for like 2,500 miles around together.
No
last
way.
week. Yeah, it was really fun.
That is cool. I didn't know you did that with him, but I remember you going to.
Yeah, we did about 250 miles a day for 10 days around the South Island of New Zealand. If you've never been, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
Oh, I could only imagine. So question, this two-part question, because you mentioned, you can, obviously when you have your masterminds, you can bring experts in. So maybe, what's some tips on doing that? And even a higher level question than that, you're probably one of the best people at networking I've ever seen. Like your network is amazing. And like, you basically know everybody. It seems like so, and I think I've asked you some tips there before, and you've helped me network and land interviews for this actually as well, interviews in my Facebook group. So, obviously, I kind of started with any tips on bringing people in, and then also just like networking and building your network in general, because you're extremely good at that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I know people are better at it than I am, but I won't introduce you to any of them so that I can stay your best. But I'm just kidding.
There you go.
So a couple of tips, just in no particular order. You want to know the hubs, not the spokes. So you want to meet other connectors. That's the fastest way to grow your network. People who are already very connected, do everything you possibly can to add value to those people. That leads to my second point. Add value. Don't ask for anything. Just connect with people. Find out what's wrong. Find out what they need help with. Find out what they're grateful for, what they're excited about. Don't ask the same boring, what do you do questions. Those two questions are really powerful. What are you grateful for? What are you excited about? Especially what are you excited about? Because it's going to tell them, it's going to allow them to tell you what the thing they're working on is, and then you can find a way to help. That's such a powerful question. Nobody asks it. They ask, where are you from? What do you do? Who gives a shit? It doesn't tell you anything about that person and what they're moving towards. Right? I want a trajectory. I want to know where they're going. What are they aiming at? What are their goals? So that I can help them with a connection, a resource, an opportunity, a person, a system get to that place. Always speak well about people, regardless of how you actually feel about them. This is kind of like Robert Greene, stuff a little bit. You can read some of his books. They're pretty solid.
Great books.
Laws of Human Nature, 48 Laws of Power, Art of Seduction. Awesome. I've met Robert. Unfortunately, I had a stroke last year. I hope he's doing better. But he's great. And then just do the work, man. Like you asked me about like, how did you become such good friends with so-and-so? And he's actually been interviewed in this group, and he's like a really hard to get to type of person.
Right.
And I just showed you like the 3 years of text messages, and we've been going back and forth forever. Like there's no shortcut to that.
Oh man, that was
it's like
crazy.
actually be a real human being who actually gives a shit, and you'll receive dividends from that. But yeah, shortcuts I would say are, really add value to the hubs and not worry about so much the spokes. Meet the super connectors and make those people, like you could have dinners and masterminds just for those people where you don't even charge them. And the benefit to them is they get to meet other ones, because that's their strategy too. I promise you, they want to know people who know people.
Right. Dude, I love that, man. And dude, I'll give you credit. I'll never forget being like, oh, he doesn't only know this person, but like apparently they're best friends. I was so blown away. I was like, how did you build a relationship with this guy? That was so funny. And like, I won't say who it is, but I've interviewed him in this group, and he's one of the people everybody's been like, yo, dude, how did you get an interview with that guy? Yeah. And like literally what I did is I followed Brad's advice. I literally said, how would I get an interview with so-and-so? And you literally just told me exactly what to do, and I did it, and it worked. So kudos to you on that. I mean, that was...
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, if you get to know people, you get to understand who they are. It's actually really easy, because that's one of my top strengths. If you're done StrengthsFinder, like my top strength is relating to people.
Yeah.
So it's not, it looks like magic, but I'm actually very good at it because it comes naturally to me. I can break it down for people so they can get the same level of success. but it's just easier to focus on what you're great at. Like Cole is incredible at putting his head down and crushing sales and marketing and just making dollars move. Like I'm great at relationships. When we come up together, like you start to team up with people who are great at different things. Oh my God, the world opens up to you. And we just got started, man. You know, that's just one example of the ways we can work together. I love making deals. I love working with people who are great at a certain thing, like world class at it. That makes me lit up and excited.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing you mentioned that was really good too. Most people might not have caught this is what are you most excited for right now? So obviously, for all the reasons that you mentioned, that's a great question. Well, another thing about that, and I've been studying this a lot recently, is it elicits what's called the excitatory bias. So when people talk about the things that they're excited for, and they talk about possibilities, they're more open to making decisions. And when they talk about their challenges and their problems and, you know, the pains and all of this stuff, it actually creates an inhibitory bias in their nervous system, and it makes them more closed off, right? To where it's like it puts them more in fight or flight. So another thing about that question, that's probably why it works so well. So one thing I want to ask you about, so like, you know, Brad's a man of many talents. And then another thing that you're just very, very good at is the affiliate stuff. For you guys that don't know, I think top 5, Tony Robbins?
I came in number 8 this year out of 5,000 people.
Okay, number 8. Well, out of 5,000 people, so you know, still there you go.
I'm a trainer for Tony. I'm a speaker for Tony. It came in, you know, one of the top 5 spots for 1,000 people that came together. I've been to 15 events. I love Tony. I would go to the ends of the earth to promote his stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
Right. And one thing to be said about that too, number 8, and you're not like, you know, I know some of the people you competed against, and they have like lists of millions of people, right? And like you don't have that. So somebody who's maybe just starting out, or maybe he's trying to monetize a little bit of the list that they do have, you know, what are some of the tips you have to do so well on the affiliate side? Because man, you crush it with that. It's probably
Thank you. And just to be candid, like it didn't work out financially this year. It worked out way better last year, but you know, you live, you learn. We went pretty heavy in COVID. That reminds me, best time to connect with people right now. All the experts you want to meet and people you want to mentor with and get to know, they're all home right now, stuck without anything to do. So get to them before they get too busy again. Anyway, so that's just an aside. But with this particular launch, yeah, we kind of got shafted a little bit as far as the money coming back, but we got to impact a lot of people. It happened at the worst possible time. Like the day of the webinar was a 1,200 point down day on, you know, fear, uncertainty, and doubt about coronavirus. The day of the close, which, you know, these are the 2 biggest sales days, was they dropped 7% at the open and they halted trading. So like it was the worst 2 days in the market in 10 years were the 2 days that we usually make the most sales on a launch. So that was challenging, but still came in number 8. And the way we executed was pretty flawless. I think we did a good job. I'm really proud of my team. But it was a combination of having done it before. We came in 24 last year. We learned from some of the best, like Nick and Brian Unsworth, Nick Unsworth and Brian Delaney, watching how JLD did it, watching how Pete did it, watching how, you know, all these different huge marketers did it, just kind of not copying exactly, but kind of doing some of the similar things that really moved the needle. Having a really strong bonus package, actually looking at like a bunch of Apple products sitting behind me in a box there that we're still mailing out to people that, you know, joined through us. So like giving people bonuses and enticing them to do that. You came in on the bonus package. You were so graciously offered all those videos that really helped move the needle and a bunch of other things as well. We put together a bonus package that was legitimately worth like 40 grand when you priced it all out. So for a $2,000 course, you make a no-brainer offer like that, you get a lot of attention, even from people who never heard of you before. And that's really the biggest hurdle. And one that honestly, I've had the biggest challenge overcoming is like, they don't know who I am. I'm promoting as Tony for Tony. Most people don't understand that. They don't understand how affiliate marketing works. So they just presume I'm spamming them, but no, they signed up for my link through my ads and I paid for them. So that's another thing. So like we actually put out a post at one point comparing affiliate marketing to Girl Scout cookies, right? You don't get mad at the Girl Scouts for selling you cookies they didn't bake.
Ooh,
you just, you know, you buy the damn cookies or you don't buy the damn cookies. I don't care, but don't get mad at the Girl Scouts. They're just doing their best to raise money for their troop.
That's interesting. That's fascinating, man. That is very true. It's basically what it is.
Yeah. So we actually wrote that whole idea out and put that out as an ad, and it got a lot of traction as well. I shared stories about my dad. I shared stories about the first time I went to a Tony Robbins event and how the woman was ready to kill herself, and we turned that around. I'm not bragging; it's just what happened. But it's just there's no one thing. If I could point to one thing, I would be lying. There was like hundreds of things working in concert, including my incredible team. We had investors that came along with us that funded the whole thing, who I'm working on getting them back to even because we just got slaughtered on the back end. But you know, it was a cool thing. Nobody did really well. Like I didn't talk to any affiliate that was like, yeah, we crushed it. Everybody was disappointed just based on the timing. So we love Tony, we love Dean, but I don't think I'm ever going to go that big on an affiliate launch again, just candidly, even though we did well from a perspective of top 10 and we were going to go to Fiji and hang out with Tony and all that. It just wasn't worth the risk versus reward, like in retrospect. However, had we just done the numbers we did last year, or even a little worse, we would have been way ahead of the game. So it's not like we took a bad bet. It just worked out to be the worst possible timing.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it was bad. I had a launch when COVID, all that stuff went down, same time. And man, it was like the same offer I literally told you about before the call, where it's like we're trying to try to pump the brakes so I don't kill my team.
Yeah, now it's crushing. Everything's back to full force.
Yeah.
Back then we got slaughtered. So
man,
it's not anybody's fault.
I had this launch and I was like, so I was probably the last. I was like, COVID's not gonna affect any of my business. And like for a couple of weeks there, I was like, oh shit, like nobody's freaking buying. Yeah. But you know, it turned around and then eventually, you know,
the world's got to move forward. That's what I know. You know, it's just going to move forward. So I'm not upset. You know, it sucked that it happened to me. It sucked that I lost, you know, a bunch of money, but it's only money, like I said. And it's not going to take us down. It's just going to make us stronger. And I'm more happy now because I've built a different type of funnel that breaks even on the front end where we don't take any risk, which I'd love to just describe because I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I was literally had that on my notes to ask you about that next.
Perfect.
Because most people, I mean, I would love to hear how you engineered it at break even. Because I know companies that they're running those, are doing really, really well, but they're like, you know, not even close to break even, maybe 50%.
Yeah. And we've actually changed it a few times since first out of the gate, when we first launched it during Corona, I was like thrilled because we were getting 3 times our money back for every dollar we spent. So every dollar we spent, we got $3 on the front end. So anything on the back end was all profit. Then it started to kind of, you know, level out. We tried to scale it. It kind of drifted down to 2 and then 1. And it was kind of like hanging around break even. I'm like, that's fine. I'm good with break even. We make all our money back pretty much day 1. You can scale that forever, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, you need more money to scale, or you need to bring on investors, you need to do all these different things. But if you have a break-even funnel where the more you spend, the more customers you have for free, essentially, that's the best way to scale a business ever, right? So we built that, and I was really excited about it. And then Facebook shut us down again. After like 6 weeks, this thing was humming, it was working. There's a little bit of a variance. Sometimes you make more, sometimes you make less, but it was breaking even overall. And they would get their books and they would enroll, and it was great. I spent like 10 to 15,000 somewhere in that range, and we made like 60 on the back end, all free leads. I was like blowing my mind. I'm like, let's crank this thing. And then Facebook started killing our best ads. That took us weeks to figure that out. I hired 2 different agencies to help us out. I mean, only now are we getting it back to where it was, and like we're a little smarter about how we're doing it, because Facebook changes their rules all the time. And it's a full-time job to keep up with it. And we were doing it in-house, and I had to bring it back out of house because I don't want to spend a week figuring it out every time they decide to shut something down. Let somebody else do that. It's worth the money. And I found somebody, luckily through my network, who's specializes specifically in book funnels. Like that's all they do. And they've scaled multiple book funnels to huge numbers. So that's who I'm working with now. It's working really well. You guys can check out the funnel if you're marketers, or if you just want to read my book on masterminds, it's at 8minutemastermind.com. We actually have a special link just for Cole. It's marbles.link/Cole. So Cole will get some cheddar on that. If you guys want to check out the book and what we got going on, and just hack the funnel, like learn what we've done, because it's really valuable. And we spent lots and lots of money to figure it out, hundreds of thousands of dollars figuring it out. So you might as well just skip to what works.
Right. And I'm assuming too, like, you know, you don't have to go into the specifics of what all these things are, but I'm assuming there's, you know, bump and OTO.
Yeah. So the structure is pretty simple. It's a book, which is different for domestic versus international pricing, free plus shipping offer. And then there's a bump for the audiobook, and there's a separate offer for a 21-day challenge to build a mastermind. And then there's a third separate offer for a masterclass on how to sell a mastermind. And then we do a downsell. I think it's up now. We probably added it yesterday. It's on the list for a $49 offer challenge.
That's amazing. And then you're leading that to a call where you're selling them on a high ticket at the back.
Yeah. And we're going to actually swap it out, because the call, we were realizing putting the call right at the end wasn't working because people weren't indoctrinated. They hadn't like consumed our information yet. So they would flake. So we're actually going to put a webinar at the end now and push people back to the webinar. So the webinar's done. I just got the slides, and we recorded this weekend. It should be up next week.
Crushing.
Yeah,
I
just
love
moving,
that.
moving.
That's very, very good. Anybody else who, would you recommend that model to a lot of people to low ticket into a call? Or
Yeah,
what do you
dude.
think?
Like I'm telling everybody, like this is the only way I want to build a business going forward because it's the only way you have stability. It's the only way you have stability. And I've met some of the biggest people in marketing. Like one of my mentors, friends is Joel Marion. And Joel has built an insane email list, like 17 million people or some crazy thing. He's like the LeBron James of email marketing. And he says, the more I can go for sure into debt to get a lead and I don't have to break even for the longer amount of time, the more I can spend. And therefore the more competition I can outwit. So he's willing to go 6 months in the hole, basically, to not make a profit, knowing that his system is going to be profitable at month 6, and he has enough of a cash flow abundance where he doesn't need it to. Therefore, he can spend more to acquire those customers than anybody else. That's why he can grow that fast. So I'm not there yet where I have a 6-month, window where I can wait. But I want to be able to get that good where I know I can outcompete anybody dollars for donuts.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm just happy to break even on the front end and scale. And there's a point at which this will have diminishing returns and your costs will go up because you're targeting more people and therefore they're less qualified, targeted, et cetera.
Yep.
But over time, you'll get the right sweet spot and you'll continue to push the boundaries.
Yeah. Well, dude, if you have the high ticket dialed in, I mean, your AOV just went way out, huge, and most people in the low ticket info space, most people doing advertisers or buying media, they're not selling, something as high ticket on the back end, right? So it's a way to kind of get around because I'm curious, would you say still for people to try like a direct to call funnel, or what's your experience been with that?
I know people are successful at it. I've never been able to be successful at it. That might have to do with a lot of things. It could be my niche. It could be a lot of different factors. I've just never been able to make it work. This has worked really well for me. Again, I bet you can find an example of anything working at some point from somebody under those circumstances, presuming they're telling the truth, right? I just know it's worked for me and the people I've spoken with and that I can verify. I can't speak to anything else.
Yeah, dude, I agree. And I think it's really like some people, they just, you got to remember you're the expert in your own business. So you can there's so many different strategies out there and most of them, if not all of them, work in certain contexts, right?
That's right.
But you just kind of got to think what's my business? What's my market? What are other competitors in my market are doing?
And time is a factor too. What worked 3 years ago doesn't work today.
Yeah. So there's
Russ Ruffino teaching that clients on demand funnel, like that shit is not going to work forever.
Yeah. And look, I know people who are using a webinar and crushing it, but at the same time, there's not a lot of people in your market who are doing that, right? So you got to look at what your market's not doing and also look at, where the opportunity is. And within that, it looks like you're crushing it with that. So
here's what I'm realizing too, is when you have something that works, you got to scale it as fast as you can. Because if you don't, you have a possibility of starting from zero again.
Well, absolutely.
So make money while the making's good. That's my general takeaway.
Well, yeah, and also other people are gonna follow that, right?
Yeah.
So
only a matter of time.
You got to be ahead of the crowd. So, question, somebody's making, they're like you, they're making money, they're doing their high ticket, they got the cash flow coming in. Their business is not one that has enterprise value. It's one for mine, instance, or a coaching business where it's a cash flow business, right? You're not going to sell it. You're probably not going to, at least. And they want to know how to invest, right? They want to know how to where to put their money, what to do with it. You're really experienced in this, far more so than I am. I'm not a finance expert whatsoever. What do you think in terms of passive and active strategies? Probably a better way. If you were an expert who was making $100,000 a month cash, where would you put your money? Where would you start?
Well, I would try to hire somebody like me, honestly, not to be putting my own hat out there and be like, oh yeah, everybody needs to hire me. And maybe it's not a good fit, but I would try to hire somebody like me who actually understands this shit, because learning this whole new skill set, it's like starting over as an entrepreneur. It is very, very different between the skill set and the mindset that it requires to make money and the skill set and mindset it requires to earn money on your money and invest it properly and protect it and manage the risk of it. Very, very different mindsets and skill sets. So I actually came at this backwards, thinking from the opposite direction because I ran a hedge fund. I was a trader before and I did well at that. And I thought, oh, entrepreneurship will be easy. But I didn't know sales. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know delivery. I didn't know psychology. I didn't know all these pieces I needed to actually become successful. It took me like 3 years to get caught up to speed. So don't make that same mistake thinking, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I got this. I can figure out how to do it, because you'll constantly be losing money and you'll eventually get so risk averse that you don't know what the hell you're doing. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend hiring somebody, and not just like the insurance guy is going to sell you insurance. The bonds guy is going to sell you bonds. The stock guy is going to sell you stocks. The real estate's going to sell you real estate guy, and the gold guy is going to sell you gold. Like, find somebody who actually understands all the different asset classes, at least at some to some extent, and more importantly, knows all the experts that they can pass you off to. When you've decided like, hey, I really want to go deep on a strategy, they introduce you to the right expert who can take you the rest of the way. And that's typically what I do for my clients. And I have a book coming out called The 8-Minute Money Machine to follow up the 8-Minute Mastermind, which you can check out at marbles.link/Cole, where, you know, I'm going to actually go through these buckets of all the asset classes I've studied over the years, which are a lot. I have really 5 buckets that I recommend. It's cash, insurance, portfolio assets, which is stocks, bond, gold, commodities, stuff that you can trade. It's paper, it's liquid-ish. And then real estate would be the next bucket. And why real estate up that high? Because it's actually riskier, in my opinion, to spend your time, energy, and attention managing things, finding deals, setting up properties, than it is to buy and hold stocks, bonds, gold, and commodities. Plus, there's tax advantage ways to invest, which we don't have to dig into right now. And then finally, the 5th bucket is like high risk. That's stuff like crypto. That's stuff like investing in, you know, companies and angel investing and venture capital and shit like that. You can also get into real estate through debt, which is something a lot of people don't understand, how to buy and sell debt. So there's different ways you can do it. And they're all going to be different based on your age, based on your income, based on how soon you're starting. Like, there's people like Grant, who's super young, who's going to get incredible, super premium rates on insurance, and he should go all in on that. And then there's clients like, you know, I have a client named Karen, who's, you know, in her late 50s, and it doesn't make any kind of sense whatsoever for her to have an insurance policy. So you just got to have a specific plan for you. But if you have somebody who understands the whole 30,000 foot view of investing, that can guide you and then connect you with the experts in each thing to get it right, that is like an unbeatable combination. So I invite anybody out there who's in that position, who's got at least 50K in liquid cash, reach out to me. I'm happy to have a chat and set you in the right direction. And I'm not tied to any one thing. We're just going to create a strategy that works for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really important, man. It's funny, guys. Kind of where I'm at in some senses. I've thought about going down the insurance path. Still don't know. I know I qualified for like the best policy you can get just because of my health. But, you know, you don't know, man. And it's like one of those things. It's like, it's, you know, I'm smart enough to know that stuff's this whole different world. Like real estate, and, you know, a lot of people, for one reason or another, you know, they're obsessed with real estate. I was like, oh, I'm going to put, and that was me at one point. Like, I was obsessed with real estate. I was like,
totally.
You know, I got to put my money in real estate, start finding deals. Man, that's its own business.
It's a whole job. Everything's a job. Like, Facebook ads are a job. Sales is a job. Marketing is a job. Like, all these things are a job. And how many jobs are you going to do at the end of the day? After a while, you got to find a way to make money, add value to the world, and then use that money to hire other people who understand different shit than you do, or can find the answers for you to do their jobs.
Yeah. Focus is huge, man.
Huge.
I remember writing in a journal one time after I got burned doing, you know, because early on when I was, you know, I didn't start off as a salesperson. I started off as a business owner. I had an agency. And, you know, throughout that time, and it kind of up and coming till sales, you know, because I wasn't always making $30,000-$40,000 commissions a month back when I sold full time. You know, I went through a phase where I was making 8 to 15, you know, and I was looking into other things and getting all these, like, distracted by these shiny objects. And I remember, you know, writing in a journal one time, like, man, every time you get distracted from the sales stuff, you just get burned. Like, every single time I got distracted, it was always like 5 steps back. But the more I focused on sales, the more money I made. And that's like, I still basically just sales, that's all I do, but at a higher leverage point than I did it before. You know?
So I want to put this unequivocally, because I think there's somebody out there that needs to hear it. The fastest path to wealth is increasing your income. It's not investing. Therefore, if you have a way that you have niched out that makes you money, I would rather you try to put a 0 on that to 10x that through leverage than to try to learn something entirely from scratch.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I know more wealthy people. Well, so, you know, I'm around a bunch of cash flow businesses, so there's some bias here. However, I know more wealthy people that have just like, they've generated such high levels of income over the course of like 5 to 10 years to where they don't have to work ever again because of like they could just literally sit on their cash, inflation, whatever. They still don't have to work. I know more people like that than I know who like crushed it on like, the traditional way. Now, it doesn't mean you should be black and white. Like you can do both, right? But I do think just focusing on skill sets and increasing your income, you can control that and leveraging it, like you just said. Some really, really good advice.
Yeah, it took me like 7, 8, 10 years to get really good at investing, and I'm still learning shit. And it's been like 20 years since I got really into it. And it took me like 10 years to get really good at entrepreneurship, and I'm still learning stuff all the time. So like, I've been doing this a long time for a 34-year-old guy. I started when I was like 16 investing. I started when I was like 20, 21 as an entrepreneur for real. Like I always had entrepreneurial jobs, but I finally went all in. I started my first company when I was 24. I still have it. It's 10 years old now. But it's like at the end of the day, I just know that focus, anything could be $1 million thing. Anything, pretty much anything. If you can make $1, you could probably make $1 million.
Yeah.
How much are you going to focus? Yeah. And then if you got the cash, find somebody you can trust to help you manage it. Not from the myopic perspective of the one thing that they know how to do, the gold, the real estate, the one thing. Like find somebody who can back up and look at the whole playing field and say, this is what's right for you, and walk you through the reasoning why, so that you agree to, and then get you the experts to really nail it down for you.
Yeah, dude, 100%. It's funny. I asked Mike Dillard on this because I think he might've been the last one or the one before this interview. And, he was saying, oh, real estate's a great investment. I was like, oh, dude, well, how do you learn that, with all your marketing stuff? He's like, oh, no, I just partnered with somebody and just paid them to do it.
Mike is a smart guy.
Like, you see the patterns.
He ran the Elevation Group, which was like one of the biggest firms for that stuff. Two of my former clients actually run it now, Brian and oh crap, what's Brian's brother's name? Jake. Brian and Jake.
Yeah.
Run it now, and I've actually done a launch with EVG. We did a big crypto launch a couple years back. So like I understand that business. I know what Mike built. It's real. It's legit. So if Mike thinks that, then I would absolutely agree with him.
Yeah. All right, wrap it up here. If somebody wants to learn masterminds, well, I mean, I think you're a great person to reach out to in terms of the wealth side, the finance side. If they want to learn any of that stuff or the affiliate stuff, I think those are your big three, man. You're really good at all three of those. Where do they find you? And also, obviously we'll give them the book link if they want to pick that up. But also, like, if they just want to, like,
definitely grab the book, get on the list. Well, you don't even have to grab the book. I'll just give you a bunch of bonuses, like free mastermind stuff. You go to marbles.link, MARBLES.link/Cole. And that'll give you 3 free bonuses. You'll see the book thing. You can go through the whole funnel if you want. That's all fine. You'll learn a lot. You'll be happy with that. If you want to learn more about money stuff, reach out to me on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/Brad Hart. That's HART, BRADHART. And you can pop me a note there. You can send me an email, support@makemoremarbles.com. That's our business, Make More Marbles. Yeah, just come on down. Check us out. We're happy to help. Whatever we can do for you. And I'm at the place now where, like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to make sure you end up in the right place. If that's with us, awesome. If not, I'll refer you out to somebody who's more suited to what you're trying to do. But I'm happy to have a conversation regardless, because I know the people in this group. There's 2,000 of them. They all listen to Cole, and he's a really smart guy. And I know I've been in this group for a while. I've been a client of Cole's. I just know that the right people will reach out that need the help and value it, and we'll go from there.
Love it, man. Any last words before we hop off?
That's it, man. I just wish everybody all the success in the world. I know you guys are working, you guys and gals. I just say guys because I'm from Long Island. You're all working so hard, and I just don't want to see you, make all the mistakes I had to make. So if you do need anything or you're just not sure, just reach out. I'm happy to send you in the right direction.
Love it. It's been an honor to have you, man. Great client, great friend, great mentor, Mr. Brad Hart.
Thank you, Cole. It's absolutely a pleasure.